I had the immense honor and pleasure of heading out to the Market Theatre last week, Thursday, to watch the newest production of Love, Valour and Compassion, which was a play written by Terence McNally, who tragically passed away last year. May his soul rest in peace. First opened off-Broadway in 1994, transferred to Broadway in 1995, won itself a Tony Award for Best Play and the Drama Desk Award for Outstanding Play. Like I said, it premiered off-Broadway at the Manhattan Theatre Club on October the 11th, 1994, running for 72 performances before it was transferred to Broadway at the Walter Kerr Theatre on February the 14th, 1995, Valentine's Day, because man knows his public holidays and his other calendar things. And closed on the 17th of September, 1995, after a run of 248 performances and 28 previews. Now, it's returned to, or I don't want to say returned to South African stages, because the first time it was directed out in New Zealand.
It has returned to South African stages, Game. It was first done here in 96 as well.
Oh, awesome.
And then a production was done of it in 2003 while I was out of the country.
Lovely, lovely stuff. The voice you just heard comes from the director of the newest production of Love, Valour and Compassion, currently running at the Market Theatre. Very, very good friend of mine. This has nothing to do with the fact that he's a guest in the studio this evening. Amazing performer and theatre director in his own right, Mr. Gregg Pettigrew. Gregg, good evening.
Good evening, Game. Thank you very much for the kind words. It's very nice to be here, and actually quite emotional to be back in a radio studio with guests, with a host, with a producer. It's awesome. Thanks, man.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing, isn't it? And I wouldn't be remiss. I would be remiss if I didn't introduce my next guest, because I got my first I want to say my first glimpse, my first look, my first introduction to his capabilities as a performer when I went to go watch Love, Valour and Compassion last week, Thursday, at the Market Theatre. He plays the role of Buzz Hauser. I'm pronouncing that correctly,
That's
yes?
right, Buzz
and
Hauser.
It's at the very best, this is an arguable, this is a debatable stance to take, at best. But you could argue he's the star of the show in his portrayal of Buzz Hauser. He's positioned as the comic relief. He comes through with immense range of performances, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, Stay, because you haven't watched the show yet. And you still have to go out there and watch it yourself. But we are also joined by performer and vocal coach, according to all of these things that I've pulled up with the extensive research I did about you, sir. Mr. Schoeman Smit also joins us as a guest this evening on the DFL Live.Beats radio show. Schoeman, good evening.
Thank you very much for having me. I think you're being very kind and generous calling me the star of the show. But thanks, I'll take it.
Please do, because it comes from the heart, I promise. Gentlemen, it is an absolute pleasure to have both of you in studio with us this evening. Like I said, you guys are the first in-studio guests we've had since March of last year, right before this COVID-19 pandemic kicked off, to be exact. And just to give you a brief sense of how our lives changed thanks to this COVID-19 pandemic, Stay and I were stuck in a situation where we could only do the show via Zoom for the majority of last year. We'd schedule Zoom meetings, we'd record them, we'd patch these pieces of audio together, and somehow a show would end up being produced at the end of it. And then as these lockdown levels started to decrease, we'd find ways to cheat and get back into the studio. But then we try it, and then things would get worse, and then we'd have to go back to Zoom. And then I was the only one who was brave enough to get back in studios. Tay was like, no, I'm not having that. I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay away. I'm going to stay in my corner of the globe, and I'm going to join in via Zoom. So two moments of personal significance are happening for us right here on the DFL Live.Beats radio show. So again, it is an absolute honor to have both of you in studio with us this evening. First things first, how are you guys this evening? How has life been since, let me say, the very, very beginning of this process, the very, very beginning of the putting together of this production, with all of the disturbances that have come in the way of it, to where we are today, almost a week after it's officially opened?
Yeah, I mean, let me start that off, and then Schoeman can jump in. Game, for me, this whole thing started a long time ago, in terms of wanting to do the piece again, and in terms of getting the producers on board. We were ready to roll in 2019. We had the sign-off. And as you know, I mean, I did auditions for our listeners out there. Your host this evening actually did audition for this piece.
I did.
And it was always intended to be done as a 25th anniversary of the play. So we were scheduled to go into rehearsals and open as normal in 2020. And, of course, the chaos hit.
Yeah.
And I have to say that there were times during those months that I was like, okay, it's just not meant to be. It's something, Greg, you need to let it go. But I didn't. And that's just my nature. I don't let go of things very easily. And we persevered and pushed and pressed. And eventually we went, okay, so Gamelihle passed away, and we went, it's going to have to be done as a tribute to him. And got to the point where the government restrictions allowed us to get into a rehearsal room on the 15th of August, with a view to then going straight down to Cape Town to open it in Cape Town before coming up to play the season at the market. And we went into our 3-week rehearsal process, and lo and behold, the restrictions actually got tighter, which meant that we had to postpone our Cape Town season. So had to put the guys back on a plane at the end of the rehearsal. You know, you do your final rehearsal room show or process, and you then go, okay, guys, go and have an 8-week break, and we'll see you in November. And then you have to pick up again in tech. So it's been the weirdest, frustrating, and yet strangely satisfying process, because it's been something that has been unique to my career. I've never experienced anything like this, and please, may we never experience anything like it again.
Oh my gosh, please.
But it has shown me the resilience, not only of me personally, but of other people. It's shown me the commitment of producers, of cast, of crew. So it's been an amazing learning curve. I'm not sure what it's like from the actor's perspective. Let's see what Schoeman has to say about that.
Well, I mean, this whole Love, Valour, Compassion experience has been a little bit of an anomaly. I mean, as Greg has said, I mean, you're rehearsing, and then there are big gaps, and you know what? And I mean, apart from anything else, is that the industry is in such a precarious situation. I mean, I was touring Evita in China when I originally auditioned for Love, Valour, Compassion. Then I couldn't do it, and then sort of later re-auditioned for something else, and then the pawpaw started hitting the fan, and then there was all of this kind of restructuring. So that, I think, was very much that got us nervous, because, you know, we are really, as a theatre community, we are really in a very precarious position at this stage. You don't know who's working, you don't know who's retired, you don't know who's moving. So it sometimes means you have to actually pick up the phone and say, are you available to audition for something? So, you know, for me, the mere fact that we walked out on the John Carney last week, it's a miracle. It's true. It truly is a miracle.
And I think it's testament to something that you said, and I'm not sure if I'm quoting you directly when I say this, but that's certainly the vibe I got in your answer to this question, Greg, to my previous question. This theme of resilience that I think so many of us in this artistic community have had to be able to tap into over the almost 2 years that this chapter has been a part of our lives. So, again, for the both of you, how did you, as individuals, as artists, and as human beings, find this challenge of finding ways to keep the passion alive, to keep hope alive? Essentially, it's a theme that Tay and I have regular conversations about, in terms of taking note of how difficult this period has been for for members of this autistic community from various spectrums and to varying degrees of hardship. For some, it has necessitated them retiring, as you said, Schoeman. For some, it's led to even more tragic circumstances. We've had numerous instances of artists taking their own lives due to their inability to deal with the difficulties and the very bad mental states that this period has left us in, again, to varying degrees. So again, I ask, how did each of you navigate the challenge of tapping into that resilience, keeping the hope alive, finding a way to keep this process alive to get to where we are at this point in time?
You know, it's a cliche, but it's the only way that I got through it. Is you have nothing but now, and you have to celebrate and honor now, because literally for us, you think you're planning something, you're planning a gig for 6 months from now, and then something happens. You only have the now to focus on, and that's the only way that I could get through it. Really.
You know, Game, for me, I think when you've been around as long as I have, I went, well, there's nothing else I can do. This is my life. It has been my life from a very young age. So I had to kind of go, I've got to find a way to survive and keep the faith. And that did extend to being well aware in my logical mind that I couldn't plan too far ahead. But boy, was I planning. If not only because it kind of set up hope in my, and the whole
necessity is the mother of invention.
Correct.
I suppose.
And the whole thing of, I'm not big on hope. I'm big on belief.
True.
Because hope can sometimes just be a pie in the sky. You can hope something's going to happen, but unless you actually get out there and believe it's going to change and do something to honor that belief, it's not. And, you know, I turned from the stage to go back to camera work, which I've been very fortunate this year, doing a lot of television and film. But in the firm knowledge that this piece was going to reignite my theatre life. And I mean, it extended all the way back to being in level 3 and still going to meetings at the producers, still talking endless hours on a phone about how I was going to do this, how I was going to stage that, who is the right casting now, is this person available? And, you know, for us oldies, we dealt with a lot of friends that were dying, and that passed because of COVID. I mean, the industry, I forget the exact figure, but in November last year, it was something like we'd actually lost at one stage in November more people we knew from the industry than days in the month.
Even
you're going
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
You know, so you're dealing, but what it showed me as well is it also showed me who the friends are, and who I can rely on, and who really cares. And I think those are important things, and that is what is filtered into the whole tagline of Love, Valour, Compassion, being friendship is everything. Because let me assure you, without friendship, this pandemic would have killed a lot more.
Everything was taken away from us. Everything everything was, that's what we had. Yeah.
Schoeman, you mentioned the John County Theatre.
Yes.
And stepping on, stepping off. And I just want to ask, like, the importance of space, the spaces that we own. What is the importance of our spaces, you know?
Okay, let's start with the John Carney. Because the John Carney, for a professional actor, is very much a bucket list stage. Some of the greatest theatrical productions, never mind theatrical productions, South African theatre production companies was birthed on that stage. So it's the closest thing I think that we have to a temple in Joburg. You know, if you sort of think about acting in that way, and it is so important. Those spaces are just so they are the lifeblood of what we do. We could not be able to thrive or survive without them.
I mean, for you've been in this industry forever. So you,
I think that's the best way to put it.
so you know these spaces, and yeah.
You know, the John County stage, I can remember as a kid going and watching all the protest theatre with my family, and how the Market Theatre really assisted in changing South Africa and getting a message across. And when I left South Africa, I hadn't had the opportunity to perform on the County at that stage. And I kind of, as Schoeman says, it was a bucket list, but that I'd resigned myself to the fact that the chance of me performing on the County stage was slim to nothing, purely based on there aren't a lot of productions for my ethnicity of actor on that stage. And in 2019, I got to do an Afrikaans piece on that stage. And when the audition brief came out, I went, I don't care what I have to do, but I will get cast in this thing. I will work that hard at this audition. Yeah. And I did. And when we transferred from the rehearsal room across the road into the County for that production, it was like a chill running through my body, to be on that stage and go, all our greats have been on there. That space, let me put it to you this way, if I ever hear that someone's threatening to demolish the Market Theatre to put up a supermarket, you're taking me with, because I will chain myself. I will chain myself to the front door of the Market Theatre. It's that simple.
But I think what you're saying also, I think what you're saying also illustrates why the market is so different to other spaces, because it is a home for everybody, and they are constantly evolving, making sure that it is truly a home for any actor, any creed. There is a space, there is a home for you.
Absolutely. Schoeman, my next question is for you. Because, again, like I said, even though you were very modest about it, your portrayal of Buzz Hauser in the show is certainly, again, without necessarily triggering the modesty and everything, it's one of the most easily accessible takeaways for me as someone who walks into the auditorium as an audience member, watches the show, and then leaves, and then talks about the show and my experience watching the show, and they go, what was the thing that stuck out to you? Oh, I was a very big fan of that Buzz character because of his stage presence, his candor, his levels of wit, how engaging he was, the incredible amount of range in performance that I think all of the actors showed, and that's testament to you as El Director, again, without stroking your egos, because I know yours is particularly easy to stroke. But I would like to get a sense from you, Schoeman, as an actor, as a performer, first and foremost, how you go about psyching yourself up to portray a character as dynamic as Buzz Hauser, someone who's described as a musical comedy enthusiast who provides the play with some of its most humorous and touching moments, is looked at as the emotional focal point of the production in terms of how everyone else around Buzz seems to be more grounded based on Buzz's presence in that moment. So for you as an actor, how does taking on the challenge of portraying that character, how do you go about navigating these feelings of excitement and these feelings of relishing the moment of being able to portray such a dynamic character?
Well, it's a very simple answer because it's on the page, and that's what makes Terence McNally so brilliant. So it's on the page, and if you just take the time to really read and digest what the man has written, it's not that hard. But any great writer it does that for an actor, You start really having to psych yourself up and work super hard when the script is usually not so great, But it's very simple with Terence McNally. And I think also that's why maybe in South Africa we have this I've said this before, we have a very odd love affair with Terence McNally, because there are many Terence McNally plays that have happened here over the years. This is certainly not the first one. But good writing's good writing, man. Makes my job a whole lot easier.
Absolutely. And for you as a director, Gregg, specifically, I can't even speak English right now. That's how excited I am. Specifically because this isn't your first rodeo as far as directing this specific production. Talk to me about the, I don't want to say differences, but definitely things that you noticed when you first directed this production all of those years ago versus this present moment, and the various things that you have observed over the span of both ends of time that have both changed and stayed the same.
Okay, Game, it's interesting because it's 22 years between rodeos on this piece. And if you ask me, would I have done it differently in 99 to what I did it, I would say no, absolutely not. For me, it was very right at that stage of my life and directing it at that stage of my life. I think what I put on stage and the vision I had for it was spot on for then. And I mean, that was also when I got to meet McNally himself, which was just astonishing. But when I knew that I was going to redo it all these years later, I went, I'm now 22 years older. I have 22 years more life experience. There are new nuances that I want to bring. And one of the challenges is you have to play the piece as a period piece. It is set in a very specific time, and particularly in the gay community. So that was never going to change. But I went, how do I bring it, the staging of it, to a modern theatre audience? And what you saw on Thursday night, honestly, I can sit here and say, with the exception of one thing, it is a totally different production to what I directed in 99. I kept one small, well, it's not that small because it's one of her biggest moments, but I mean
it's the most work I do on stage.
It was actually, I kept two things because I do change the end of the play. Actually has an extra scene written if you read the script, and when I did it in 99, I sought permission to change the ending. Well, not change it, but rather stop the play before it's actually written to stop.
Sure.
And I got a letter from McNally going, absolutely, you're the director, you can do whatever you like, just remember I'll be watching. No pressure. So I have kept that because I still believe it is the right way to end the play. I think in 95 the original ending was very much for shock value more than anything else. And then I kept the anthem, which is not in the script. That was something I added in 99, and I've kept that. Yeah. But the rest of the piece is completely fresh, a completely new vision. And I've enjoyed that because I've enjoyed challenging myself. And also, I'm working with 7 different actors. They're not the same cast I had back there. The most difficult question, which you may get to later, which do I think is the better production? I'm not going to answer it.
I don't think that would be a fair question to ask because I mean I know this as an actor myself, having been in a production, well, the same production but playing 2 different characters in that production. There's no way of ranking one above the other because the experiences are different, the perspective is different. So rest assured.
I would just like to add something to Schoeman's comment about the script, because it is so true what he's saying. You cannot go wrong when a script is as good as this is, or is written as well as McNally wrote it.
Yeah, we call it actor-proof in the business.
Yes, we do. It's literally. But the thing about McNally, and if you go and watch on YouTube, there's a Masters of McNally series, and all of the international actors talk about the fact that it's not only about the words. In McNally, if you play the punctuation, you're home free. And that is how good the man's writing. Every comma, every full stop is not just put there because that's how it's done in English. It's put there to tell the actor what to do.
Budding actors and writers, if you're listening, take notes.
Take notes. Gregg, you said something so important, like the piece was right at that time, over 22 years ago. And for me, I know as a writer, as a director as well, why is the show so important right now actually. You
Okay.
know?
That's actually also quite an easy one to answer. I would like your opinion on this as well. But back then, it was very much obviously centered around the AIDS crisis and about gay people coming out and living together and exposing the world to gay relationships. And obviously, we've moved so far from needing to do that. I mean, you know, on TV now we have gay characters, film, etc., etc. So it's not about that. It's about the power of the fact that Gamelihle looks at relationships, friendships, life, crises and how we cope with them. Death, indeed. And an anecdotal story at our first preview is we had a very young audience member that had come with his family, and as he was leaving the theatre, he turned to his mother and he said, "You know, Mum, I didn't perhaps get all the references they were making, but it's made me challenge who I am as a human." And I went, man, if we've succeeded in getting an 18 or 19-year-old to do that, our job is done.
Yeah.
Because that's why it's relevant.
Absolutely.
Every single person can learn from it and go, God, do I handle these situations correctly? What is my value system? And of course, the pandemic we're in has just added further fuel to that in terms of the parallels between what we're living through with COVID and what us as a gay community lived through in the 90s. The parallels are there.
Yes, which is actually interesting. I was going to comment on that because many of the younger gay audience members can draw the parallels with COVID and what they're going through now far more clearly and far more defined than to HIV or AIDS or what people were. So that's also, it's a bit of a, I don't know, universal.
It's very weird.
It's very odd. It's very strange. I'm sort of in the middle, so I remember enough of it, but I didn't live it. You know?
I kind of go somewhere. Gamelihle is sitting above us and has just kind of orchestrated the whole environment, is the way I like to think of it.
And I think it goes back to this idea of the show, the relationships, right? Because we haven't had relationships in a sense. And this idea of friendships, how do we connect with each other when we are not able to be with each other, you know? And I think that's quite an important thing.
100%.
Indeed. Oh my gosh, I feel like I want to keep this conversation going, but I did promise we would take a brief audio intermission, and that's exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to be a bit corny with the way in which I'm taking this audio intervention. That's just for the two of you. You are still tuned to the DFL Live.Beats radio show powered by Valour FM, Voice of Wits, and the lovely folks from Wits Drama for Life. We'll be right back with the amazing, immensely charismatic cast and crew of Love, Valor, and Compassion, currently running at the Market Theatre. And please stay tuned to the DFL Live.Beats radio show.
We might not have all the answers, but we will always ask the questions. Join the conversation at Live.Beats 881 on Twitter or Live.Beats Radio Show on Facebook. Valour FM 88.1.
The Icon. It's Madonna on Valour FM 88.1. This one's titled Vogue. Very significant song for love, valor, and compassion. That's all I'm going to say, because I'm not in the business of providing spoilers here in this life. If you want to find out why that specific song is significant to the show, you're going to have to make your way to the Market Theatre while you still can to check out Love, Valor, and Compassion. Speaking of...
You're tuned in to Live.Beats, powered by Drama for Life.
We are still joined by director of the show, currently running at the Market Theatre, Mr. Gregg Pettigrew, and still, who I consider the star of the show, Schoeman Smit, who portrays the role of Buzz Hauser in this production of Love, Valor, and Compassion. Gentlemen, my next question to you is tied to the question that Ter ended the first half of this interview with. And it's a question that's linked to a bunch of conversations that Ter and I have had around our position of observation, being that Ter and I both identify as straight black males, right? And we've had this conversation about the most effective ways to express allyship to the LGBTI community, and in trying to find these ways, we've also had to think about our own relationships with the LGBTI community and the ways in which we've engaged with them both in the past and present day. So I think what I'm interested in right now is what the two of you have made through engaging with this process. Gregg, for you, because this is another ride on the rodeo for you as far as directing this production. What have you made of the various observations you have made as far as the parallels that run between the gay experience in South Africa versus that in the States where this play is set, and the ways in which so many things again feel like they're different from each other, but similar at the same time as far as the experience. I think that's where I'd like to start with this question.
Schoeman, start thinking. Game, I'm going to answer this question in quite a roundabout way. I think the gay community in South Africa has certainly come a long, long way from where it was when I was a teenager and in the process of coming out, when it was still illegal. The thing that I'm going to say this at the risk of offending your listeners. It's fine. The thing that gets to me within our own community is, I think the younger generation of gay men in South Africa, or LGBT gay women, whatever, because now we can identify as various different things, but we won't touch too deeply. I'll leave that to my esteemed colleague next to me.
Leave me with the easy stuff, will you? Okay.
The younger people in our community have very little knowledge of what my generation or the generation before me did to pave the way that they can actually be able to be in the position to make the choices that they have. And it's something that I think, when comparing it to the American community, is markedly different. You'll notice I actually wear an earring with a symbol cut into it, which is lambda. And this was the symbol that was used at the Stonewall riots. It was the symbol to mark the protests. And somehow the American community have managed to be true to their history, and the youth have learnt about the history, and it's respected. And I think the crossover between all the different communities, like you say, the straight community, and something, for me personally, we need to stop beating that stick. We need to stop going, this is a straight man, or this is a gay man, or this is a bisexual. How about the fact that we're just men? How about the fact that we're just humans? In this country particularly, we've slowly grown away from identifying people by race. And I go, let's stop doing it by sexual orientation as well. You know, I don't need to walk up Elof Street waving a gay flag. I'm a proud gay man. I have many straight friends. I have many gay friends. So, you know, you shouldn't be worrying about what you do to help the LGBTQI community. We should be worrying about how we help each other as human beings. And that's why this play for me is so special, because it happens to use 8 gay men as its medium. But the message is so clear. It's about humanity. So, yeah, I hope I haven't offended thousands of people out there, but that's my take on it. Schoeman.
I mean, it's a complicated and delicate subject, you know, no matter which way you approach it from. But I think the best way, certainly from my experience, the best way I can put it is, and I'm talking in general, I'm talking all of us, we're figuring it out, and sometimes we need you just to hold that space to know that we are figuring it out, and sometimes that's enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think I think I'll expound on why I felt the need to pose that question, because I think over the course of the conversations that Tay and I have had, because a few shows ago we were honored to have a guest by the name of Tutu Zondo on the show as a guest, who is doing amazing work as far as activism is concerned in the LGBTQI space. And those themes did pop up over the course of our conversation, as far as, okay, we're in a situation, certainly in modern times, where the genuine nature of this allyship that is being extended towards the community can be placed under a microscope of criticism, of not being sure, because no one is entirely confident and entirely sure that the support that they receive is genuine. A lot of the time, there's this very real fear that the support they receive comes with discrete ulterior motives, and that makes us question whatever support we get from whatever direction it comes in. So it was only over the course of this conversation that I realized that I think the problem for us as outsiders of the community is that we actually don't have the authority to speak on these on these, to have these conversations, to pontificate on these issues from a place of authority, because we have no idea what that experience is like. And the best people to ask to have these conversations with are those who do, you know. And I think that's why I appreciate both answers that I've gotten from the two of you as they came, and I'll definitely take that as well.
Can I just interject there for a second, Guy? I think there's a line in the play that I think sums up this issue to this day, and it's a line that happens over dinner, where the one character says, "I think the problem begins right here, with how we relate to one another as gay men." And let's face it, in our community, we are our own worst enemies.
No,
because
specifically gay men.
Absolutely, and I'm talking specifically about gay men. We really are our own worst enemies. But the other thing I want to say on it is that I had an actor audition for this piece that is now in the piece. That, as you know, having auditioned, one of the first questions I asked actors was, why? Why do you want to do this piece? And this person turned around and they went, because I'm a straight man from a minority community, and I want to show my community that gay people are as normal, in inverted commas, as any of us are. And I went, that is an intelligent answer. It really is. So, yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to say you were talking about you can't speak from a place of authority, which I get and I understand, but you're willing to listen, and that makes all the difference.
100%.
That makes all the difference.
Indeed. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. I really do. Steph?
Yeah, the show feels so important. Like, I can't even, I haven't seen it yet, but already the conversations that are coming about right now, it's so important of how people connect. You know, how do you connect with your community through theatre? And I think that's what you and the whole team are doing. And I think, what's the importance of engagement with community, whether South Africa, whether the world? What's the importance of engaging with this work?
It is so crucial to engage, because it is, as I keep banging on, this piece has so many different connection points, and so many options. I mean, Game, you saw it. You can be touched from it from so many different angles, and of course, I mean, there are times where I go, okay, Gregg, are you just totally in love with the piece and just a McNally freak? And it's a fair question, but you know, as we sit here tonight and talk about it and talk about connecting communities, and I'm going, no, I'm not wrong about this. It's not just me. This piece, for some reason, has an ability to unite, connect, communicate, and most importantly, to challenge. Yeah. Because in South Africa, I think we are often too scared to challenge.
Cool. I love that. My next question, both of you are going to take a stab at answering this, especially you, because again, this is not your first rodeo directing this production. So I'd be very curious to get. I'd be very curious to hear the quality of answer I get from you for my next question. But I firmly believe that these shows that we audition for as actors, these processes that we all undergo as performers, the various kinds of work that we engage in as artists, I firmly believe that each of those experiences, when we get them, are put in our lives for a reason. They're put in our lives to teach us things about ourselves, to teach us things about the world around us, to teach us about the way we relate to the world that we live in, the world around us, the people in this world around us. So for you, Schoeman, the question I'd like to pose for you is, what would you say is the most, I mean, you mentioned the fact that you auditioned for this production while you were working on another one, then you found yourself in a situation where you couldn't commit to performing in this production, and then things worked in your favor. Here you are as the amazing Buzz House. It's great. But my question to you is, what would you say is the most vital life lesson you took from your experience from day one of rehearsal, whenever you joined, to where you sit now? What would you say sticks out as the most important thing you learned about yourself and the world that you live in, and how you relate to this world that you live in over the course of your engagement with this process? And for you, Gregg, as a director, as an artist yourself, and as someone who, through your position as director, are afforded the opportunity to witness all of these instances of growth in each of the individual actors that you have at your disposal as your cast, what would you say each of them taught you? And what would you say also stuck out for you as the most important lesson that you've learned? I'll start with you, Schoeman.
Tell the story, no matter what. That is the important thing. Tell the story, because in telling that story, you unify people. I think it's as simple as that for me. And certainly in Love, Valour, Compassion, because Love, Valour, Compassion has nothing to do with these men going on holiday over the course of 3 weekends. These are people, and you see it. You see in the audience, when you are completely and utterly committed to tell the story, you can see the light behind the audience members' eyes. You can see them go, oh, that's me. That's me. And that person doesn't necessarily have anything in common with you, but it's that unifying power of telling a story, of what telling a story can do. That's it, I think.
Yeah, I've also got a very, very simple answer to this. It has reminded me of how blessed we are to actually do the job that we do. And it's something that I think I certainly will never take for granted again, because having lost it for so many months, you just go, man, we didn't realize how blessed we were.
Absolutely.
And in terms of a group of actors, it has taught me to truly care about different personalities within a cast, which I think is something that doesn't happen enough. There was one rehearsal towards the end of the process where I went, the guys have committed to my vision and executed it. I literally, Schoeman will tell you, I sat and wept in the rehearsal room. And it was tears of sheer gratitude and appreciation for 7 actors that have literally given me their mind, their body, their soul to graft into this piece, and have trusted me with their, I mean, the bottom line is an actor places his faith in the director. And these guys have been an absolute joy. It is easily the most wonderful company as a whole that I have ever worked with in my career.
There's something very potent, for lack of a better word. I wish I had a better word to use. I couldn't think of one. So potent it is. But there's something very potent about the degree of power that theater has to serve as a, and again, this is a conversation that Ted and I have on regular occasions here on the show. It actually was inspired by the events that we've all had to live through over the past 2 years, and an idea that sparked in our minds last year, where we were investigating the therapeutic qualities that art possesses, art of any form.
Absolutely.
Right? So again, there's something very potent about the power that theater has to serve as this space that you can turn to dump everything going on inside you that has been placed there by this cruel world that we live in, to such a degree that you come to look forward to going to the rehearsal space again, because, oh my God, I'm looking forward to this simply because I know I'm going to be a different human being the moment I walk out of it again at the end of this day. You know, so again, like I would like to get a sense from the both of you how this idea of art as a form of therapy and the therapeutic qualities that art possesses, how that idea resonates for the both of you.
So we have a mutual acquaintance that recently passed away, who was a very, very experienced actor, and he had an uncharacteristically wise moment when he made this comment to me, and he said, and I think it sums it up so beautifully. He said to me, if you do theatre right, the purpose of theatre is to heal the sick and hurt the mean. And I think that
sums it up. I mean,
I love that. Please,
which is
please repeat that, sir.
So he said, theatre, when you do it right, it heals the sick and hurts the mean. And he wasn't he wasn't he wasn't that type of person.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
But I mean, I cannot add to that, because that is it answers the question.
I absolutely love that. If you do theatre right, it heals the sick and hurts the mean. That's for the benefit of those who didn't catch it the first 2 times it was said. So again, thank you so much. And I think from me, to round off this discussion, and again, I'd like to pose this to both of you. For the benefit of those who are tuned into this particular radio show right now, listening to the both of you speak on what I'm sure is, or what I'm sure must have been, an absolutely wonderful experience putting this show together. It came chock full of lessons to learn for the both of you as an actor, Schoeman, as a director, Gregg. It came through with highs and lows to varying degrees. And here we are now, a week after it's officially opened. It's running up until, I want to say, the 12th of December.
That's it.
Yes,
Correct.
running until the 12th of December at the John County Theatre at the Market Theatre Complex. Again, for the benefit of those who are tuned into the DFL Live.Beats radio show right now, who, like Ter, have not yet seen this production, what would you like for those people to be able to take from the experience of watching this production when they go and see it?
I want to challenge all your listeners that haven't been to see it yet. I want to say, come and see it, and do yourself a favor. Stay after the performance for 5 minutes. Meet some of my actors. Come and have a chat to me. And I'm going to ask you one question. I'm going to ask what you took away from it, because I know that every person will take something away. And your listeners need to challenge themselves and get down to the Market Theatre, get onto our website, lovevalor.co.za, book those tickets through L Tickets and Web Tickets. Come and meet us, come and talk to us about the piece, and challenge yourself, and leave feeling that you've gained something, that a small piece in your life has been added.
So I would rather like to extend an invitation and say to your listeners, I will buy the ticket. I will, and my castmates and I, we will create a space for you to come and feel whatever you decide you want to feel. If you're not feeling anything, then we've got a problem. But if you want to be angry, we'll create that space. If you want to come and cry a little, if you want to laugh a little, that's not our business. But we'll create that space.
It's very interesting, Game. Just one last quick thing. Schoeman and I have this debate often as to whether it's an actor's job to create emotion or to make people feel things. And it's for a whole new show next year when you have us back.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because
when the two of us are on the production side,
we are quite at loggerheads on that one. Yes.
I still love you, dear.
I mean, just really quickly, just to briefly expound on what I took from watching the production of Love, Valor and Compassion at the Market Theatre last week, Thursday. And you did kind of sum it up for me earlier, where I just realized that at the end of the day, we are all human. We all feel the same things. There might be slight differences in terms of the choices that we make and how we navigate these various things that happen to us, but these are all real things that happen to real people, and that for me just makes it even more significant that everyone from any kind of any background, any creed, any orientation, really, go out to the Market Theatre as soon as you can. You only have until the 12th of December to do so. 12th of December 2021 is the last day you get to catch Love, Valor and Valor and Compassion. This production of Love, Valor and Compassion at the Market Theatre. I'd like to take this moment to thank our amazing in-studio guests, Gregg Pettigrew and Schoeman Smit, for joining us here on the show this evening. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Game. Thanks for having us.
Honor to have you in studio, our first in-studio guest in over a year, Ter.
Hey, man.
In over a year.
And it's a great way. It's a great way to come back and just to feel it. I think for me, tell the story.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that I'm taking away from today.
Absolutely. Tell the story. And don't aside from, I'd just like to add to this really quickly. Tell the story. And for those of you on the receiving end of the story, listen wholeheartedly. And don't pick and choose what you are prepared to listen to. Because I think a lot of us miss that from the process of engaging with the stories that are told and our role as the listeners of the story. We miss the important bit of it where we can't pick and choose what we listen to. We can't pick and choose what we like and what we don't like, because those things that we like and what we don't like both form part of the story that we're receiving. So we have to be able to arm ourselves with the capacity to take both the good and the bad, however you determine what is good and what is bad from what you take in. But yes, I digress, and we have reached the end of the show. Thank you so much for tuning in to the DFL Live.Beats radio show. We do this one more time for the last time in 2021, next week, Monday, 8 to 9 p.m. right here on Vow FM 88.1. Again, a massive thank you to our in-studio guests. A massive thank you to Kali for his amazing work as the producer of the show. A massive thank you to Vow FM and Wits Drama for Life for the amazing support that they've always shown these SA Radio Award nominated DFL Live.Beats radio show. I can't not mention that. And a big thank you to you for tuning in and joining us here on DFL Live.Beats radio show. We'll catch you right back here next week, Monday evening. Until such a time, please continue to take care of yourselves and each other. From us to you, it is goodbye and good night.
We might not have all the answers, but we will always ask the questions. Join the conversation at Live.Beats 881 on Twitter or Live.Beats Radio Show on Facebook.